There we go. Hey,
There we go.
everybody.
Hello, hello. Well,
Yeah.
welcome everyone to another SBA Live. I think this is going to be a really fun one. I want to introduce everyone. So I'm Matt Van Drimmelen, the owner and founder of Full Circle Aftercare. And we are a service-based business that helps families wrap up estate issues after someone's passed away. We work with funeral homes and hospices and law firms and several people that want to gift our service to those families. And Nikki, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Nikki Schmutz. I'm Director of Operations here at Full Circle. And if you've been watching, then you already know who I am. But I'm Matt's right-hand person and happy to be able to be here with this company and do what we do to help families every day.
That's right. I think it's reversed. I'm your right-hand person now. You're
And today we have one of our estate specialists, Kathy, with us, and we're going to get into have Kathy's introduction as part of our presentation too. So
that's like a little tease.
I know Kathy's here, which is awesome because every family loves Kathy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right, I'll get these slides up here. We're going to go over just a basic, what is an estate specialist before we introduce Kathy, because Kathy is our most senior estate specialist, meaning she has been here the longest out of all of our employees. So our estate specialists, for anybody who hasn't been watching this before now, we do service-based aftercare. Service-based means that we have a hands-on approach. We are the boots on the ground, helping every family we come in contact with. Our estate specialists are very knowledgeable. We have rigorous training to make sure that they can help the families settle all of those non-legal estate issues, help make notifications, cancel accounts, and identify all the things family needs to do, including if they need to talk to an attorney, which almost every family does. So
yep, exactly.
Today we have Kathy here with us, Kathy Mills. Kathy has been with Full Circle Aftercare for 7 years.
Wow.
I know, it's awesome. And we like to say Kathy's famous quote is, "I am here to be your best advocate." And I'll let her tell her about herself, but Kathy has helped 5,700 families since she started here. She has helped more families than anyone else on staff. It's amazing. Do you want to add anything, Matt, before we have Kathy tell us about herself?
Well, I think she was a little bit offended when I first bought her a plaque that said Senior Estate Specialist. And she's like, "What is this supposed to mean? You're calling me old?" Which put me in my place completely, as she should have. But no, Kathy is more than an estate specialist. Obviously, when we have families that really need someone to go the extra mile, we always give them to Kathy. And she has become our... how do I put this? She has truly become kind of the center of the culture of our estate specialists. So not only is she serving the families, but she is helping the rest of us learn how to be better at that. One of the things that I think is the most fantastic about Kathy is sometimes when we know a lot, we don't want to listen to other people. And when I have new hires, I say, watch Kathy, because she's helped more families than anyone. And yet, as she's training a new employee, sometimes they'll say something a certain way and she'll go, "Oh, I like how you said that. I'm going to change how I say it to be that way." She's so teachable, which is such a rare gift, to be teachable and have so much knowledge and experience. And I say the only reason why she's so amazing, and because she is the center of the culture of our whole company, is because she has always been that teachable. She's always wanted to learn and get better and better and better. Instead of saying, "I know everything, everyone should listen to me," it's we do listen to her because she's teachable and learning more. So we just absolutely love her here.
Yes. So Kathy, tell us about yourself and your background. And
Sure. Well, first off, you're making me blush, right? Come on. So I have 4 kids, and they grew up, and I was struggling with how to spend my time. I could pass the time, but I wanted to do something productive that would contribute. And so I ended up here at Full Circle Aftercare, and have never looked looked back. I have definitely increased my hours over the time that I've worked here, but I find a lot of joy and fulfillment in talking to a family that I don't know what is going on aside from they lost a loved one, and then going through our checklist and finding out how I can best help them, how I can be their best advocate. My job is to be a kind, assertive advocate. That is my goal with every family, is just to make sure that we listen and educate and help out as best we can.
Absolutely. So, Kathy, we lean a lot on Kathy because of all the experience she has. When we have reports come in from our clients, hospice or funeral home, especially funeral home, when we're having very difficult cases or very specialized circumstances, Kathy is one of those people that we lean on because she has so much experience that she can always get to the bottom of things and figure out how to help families. And that's why we have her here today to tell us some stories about how she's helped families so that everyone can gain more of an understanding of the types of things and the type of people that we employ here and what we do.
Kathy, tell me what it means for you. You say, I'm here to be your advocate. What does that mean?
Well, people grieve differently. Some people grieve very weepy, some grieve angry. And so as I'm going through this, I want to know who needs to be notified, if it's been taken care of, give me the information, and then I make sure it happens. And there's not one family that's the same. There's people that have lost a young person in their life. There's people who have lost very old people. There's people that have lost people due to accident or sadly suicide. And having that knowledge of a little bit where they're coming from and to read the room, read their emotion, helps me help them in a way that works best for them.
That's a great answer.
I love that because I think a lot of times with businesses, it's like we have a certain way of doing business. And if you want to do business with us, you need to come fit within our box, right? This is our way of doing it, and this is how it works. And so you fit within our process or you don't come at all. And what I think that means is every family that comes to us is going to have a different set of circumstances. Some are going to have a high understanding of the state closing process. Some are going to have no understanding, right? We might get that widow who never helped with anything, or the widower, right? That never, my spouse did all of those things. And so rather than them fit within our process, we're going to meet them where they're at and make sure that we're advocating for them there.
Which leads us to our first slides, advocating for families. Kathy is one of the most amazing advocates. And like she was just saying, we don't need to know a full story to be that type of advocate. And listening is the best way to really communicate and connect with a family.
It's true. I helped a family once, and I knew a tiny bit of the backstory where a family member made a bad choice. He lost his life. Others were involved, and the family felt quite a bit of judgment within the community. And that was helpful for me to know, but I felt for that mother who I was talking to. And so I really focused on being her best advocate and taking care of anything I could so that it reduced her stress, increased her peace, and that when she left my conversation, she felt no judgment, just help. That was my goal.
And I'm sure that's exactly what she needed, the non-judgmental person to guide her through that.
Sure.
Were you going to say something, Matt? Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So Kathy, explain to us, I mean, we see it all the time here, but someone could be a very, very capable person in a normal circumstances. And then after the loss of a loved one, what can happen and why does it become so difficult for families to actually go through this process?
Well, I think when you try to make notifications, you don't know exactly what questions you should be asking. It just they're in a state of overwhelm and a state of grief, right? And one time I was helping this woman who had lost her spouse. We were making notifications together, and the agent said more than once, "What is your phone number?" And she said, "Our phone number," and then she started to cry. And then they would ask, "What was the date of passing?" And then when she said that, it also made her cry. So when we finished up that notification, I said, "You let me say those 2 pieces of information. I will tell them your phone number," which made her sad because it wasn't our phone number anymore, it was just hers, "and I can say the date of passing." Those 2 pieces of information did not make me cry, but they made her cry. So I wanted to just, help her through that so we could get through the notification with the least emotion, that we could while completing our tasks.
I think that that is something that I didn't think about when we were first creating the company. Is I thought about how this would be convenient for families, right? We could take a long drawn out process and make it simple for them. What I didn't think about was that emotional state, right? Little things being triggering, like you just pointed out, our phone number instead of my phone number. And having you there to navigate that with the family must be just such a relief to them to have you say those words and do that notification. Let me ask you, do if the family were there on their own, besides the emotional side, does the other side like always have give them correct information, or do you sometimes have to kind of help like the social security worker
For sure.
understand what's going on?
Well, Social Security is confusing. It's like the big scary monster. And so people just assume that every answer you get from them is correct and they do an amazing job. But sometimes in their explaining, it becomes very confusing. And so sometimes it requires us to kindly and assertively say, "Oh, this is my understanding," or "Can you make an appointment?" We're not just calling to report the passing. We want to get benefits set up for this surviving spouse. That's the purpose of our call.
Right. Right. Because I've had government employees, the VA and all sorts of different places tell the family wrong information right
For
there on the
sure.
phone. And having someone there with them to be like, that's actually not right in a kind way, right? That's not right. You're telling them wrong information. This is their actual situation, or you're leaving something out here. They need more information to get help. That's so key to having that. It's the emotional side of struggling to make the notifications, which is so great to have you there. And then have, like you said before, that advocate who is there on the phone to make sure that they're getting the right information, that company or government agency is getting the complete story when it comes through. And I think this is one of the values of having you there. We've been working with a lot of kind of online and app based and desktop apps, kind of like a TurboTax for closing estates, those types of things. And at the end of the day, the family still has to make all the notifications on their own, right? And so these companies just assume that that's going to be an easy peasy go-to process. They just needed the right phone number. But where they're wrong is they need someone to hold their hand, like a Kathy. And that's exactly what you're providing to each of those family members.
Well, and in the case of Social Security, if an agent says, "Okay, we've got this appointment, it's set up for January 15th at 2 o'clock," then that could create a lot of anxiety saying, What happens between now and January 15th?" So
Right.
typically, once we're off the phone, I say, "You are not penalized because Social Security has a busy schedule." So benefits will continue until you have that appointment. And then benefits are caught up to that point after the fact. So that relieves a lot of stress and anxiety knowing that they're not penalized because Social Security has a busy schedule and they can't talk to someone for 2 months or 6 weeks down the road. And so that's something that's very helpful to explain to families. And I typically do that when we're off the phone with Social Security so that they know you're not penalized because they have a busy schedule.
So it's not just about being there during the notification process, but also being afterwards with them to help them understand what just happened. What is the next step in this process,
Right.
and not leave that to complete chance or wonder.
I've been on the phone with Social Security before with families where how they explained it, I sat there and listened to it and thought, oh my gosh, they don't even know how to explain anything. And that was clear as mud. And so being able to take the jargon they use, which is very much Social Security based, and be able to translate that to families is extremely important. And I know
For sure.
Kathy does that every
And
call.
sometimes with the agent, I'll say, to be clear, what you are saying is that the final payment they can keep is for this month because
Right.
of this reason. And so then they're like, yeah, that's what I said. And I'm like, yeah.
That's not what you said, but yeah, sure. In your mind, you did.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
part of that, I'm going to switch slides here, going the extra mile, because I have personally heard Kathy become not just an advocate, but a defender of the family member that we have on the phone. And she's not going to take no for an answer. And she's not going to allow anyone to, say something that doesn't make sense or isn't true. I've heard that multiple times.
One time I had this mother on the phone with Social Security, and they were giving us grief because they're like, you're not on your son's account and all of this. And then I thought back to my social work training and Social Security, and I just said to this mother, are you your son's, he had a disability, his representative payee? And she said, yes, I am. And then the whole tone of the conversation changed because now the Social Security could check that. And then immediately all the doors were open. They could explain everything to this mom, make sure that things would be taken care of. And we got through a roadblock because at first the agent was not hearing anything that we had to say. But once we mentioned that magic word that she was a representative payee for her disabled child, then the doors opened. We handled what we needed to, and both of us felt a huge sense of relief that we accomplished what we needed to in that call to Social Security.
And in that case in particular, without you already knowing the ins and outs of rep payee and disabled children, that could be an adult disabled children, which is where the conflict, like that misunderstanding would have happened.
Correct.
Yes.
Because he was over age 22, and so they were like, we're not speaking with you, and we don't care who you are, but the representative payee that got us the information that we needed.
Right. And I'm sure that there's 1,000 stories like that for every government agency and every insurance company and every financial institution, right? Where there was just wrong information, and had the family been left on their own, the communication would have broken down because there's a connection of understanding there of what's going on. So having you there helps that.
And it could mean a lot of money for families, right?
Right.
They're entitled to benefits, and if it's not explained well to them, or if they get misinformation, then they just accept, oh, I thought I was going to get this and I am not. And so, having someone to just advocate a little bit for them, ask those questions. What's the final payment? Are there other benefits? Is there life insurance associated with your benefits? Is there health insurance? Did your loved one contribute to a 401k? All of those questions can really mean a lot to a family member who is the beneficiary to those benefits.
Right. One of the stories I like to share about Kathy is, I think it was during COVID when they had reported the death, like she had passed away rather than her husband, and they needed to fix it. She had to go into the office, but the offices were all closed. And I think on their own, it'd be like, there's nothing I can do here. Everything had been frozen. And the story that I remember from you is all of a sudden we got a call from the Social Security Administration. I guess you had been calling and bugging the Alaska state senator or Alaska senator or congressman or one of the two. And you had bugged them so much that they called the Social Security admin and asked for a special favor to help this family out. And I was like, only Kathy would do that. Like, She's
You
going to take it to Washington, D.C. to get this thing fixed.
If you put yourself in that surviving spouse's shoes where they have her listed as the person that passed away, that completely disrupted her life, right? Crazy things happen. And so, to be able to work that out, did take a few phone calls and being assertive.
And defending. That's why I use the word defend.
Yeah. I mean, that's beyond advocacy. That's like taking the bull by the horns right there. I love that.
I helped another family, and I called a couple Social Security offices, and they gave me the answer that I was not looking for. And I had shared that with the family, and then we called the correct state. And this was a very heartbreaking situation. And when we talked to the agent, she was like, there's nothing I can do for you. And I just said, I do not mean to be belligerent, but you can't tell me that there's no benefits for this little baby. So a sweet person lost her life, and they were able to save her baby, and we were hoping to get benefits for the baby who had been in the NICU for several weeks. And so the agent at that point said, well, let's apply for disability for this baby. And so that was awesome. It was more than I expected, because I had already called 2 other Social Security offices, and they said, "No benefits are available." But that was the incorrect answer, and so we tried again, and this time with the family. I just called by myself to 2 agencies, and then 2 Social Security offices, then I called with the family member, and then we made an appointment so that they could apply for disability. And I just felt that I had left no stone unturned in
Yeah.
trying to advocate for this family. And that's very fulfilling to me, knowing that I did every single thing I could for that family in a very tragic situation.
Yeah. I remember right at the beginning when you were first working here, and one of the things that impressed me is that no stone unturned. Like, you're going to do it all. I remember walking outside my office, and you had a sheet of paper. It was turned over, and it had all these numbers on it. And I was like, "What is that?" And you said, "Oh, this family, this guy had 52 credit cards."
Oh my gosh.
52. And I think a lesser person would have just been like, let's take, I'm not going to do this for you, right? And you're like, I do not want this widow to get one phone call. And you had written down every single credit card and all the information, and you were calling line by line, making sure everything was done, because you were worried that one of them would call this widow, tell her she was responsible for something she wasn't. And I think there's a lot to that story of what exactly happened, but I just remember saying, oh, this is different. This is what makes Kathy different. No stone unturned. I'm going to be your advocate. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that family is taken care of.
And I would add to this also that sometimes when we call families and they don't know that they need help, and so they'll decline our help. And Kathy does not like that at all, because she knows what they need to be doing. And so she is so good at saying, but wait a minute. So how do you do that, Kathy? Because you have turned so many people who say, no, I'm fine, I don't need help. And then help them for hours and hours because they really did need help.
Well, one thing that we hear often when we're trying to get an appointment set up is, I've got everything taken care of, or I've got an attorney, which is great, right? I cannot do legal related things. That's not my training, but there's so much that we can do, setting up protection services to help prevent identity theft. And so gently and kindly, when people say, I really don't need this, then I'll just say, let me explain a few things, and then, was there this, was there that, can I help with this? And most of the time, at the end of every call, people will say, I had no idea that it one person said
Yeah.
to me, I didn't know it was this much work to pass away, to handle all the affairs.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, and just having some guidance on how long to leave the bank account open. that's big. And just things as we go through, then people do realize how much this it's needed. And also having the opportunity to call back if there's additional questions or if new things pop up, and going over the email. People don't have to take copious notes during our conversation, because our email is amazing and it goes through everything. And so it is a big help to families.
We have a question here from one of our listeners, from Erica. It says, it sounds like you do a lot for families. How often do they call back with extra questions?
Well, it's more than you would think. And sometimes what is nice is if you can quickly call them back, and keep this problem a little problem, a molehill, instead of having the family continue to fret about it when it becomes a mountain problem. So that's really awesome that they just give me a call and say, "Hey, I'm still worried about this." Then we're
Right.
like, "Okay, let's fix it. Let's call together. Let's email them. Let me do some research and call you back." Because that's our goal too. It's just to get rid of the overwhelm and the stress and anxiety over passing a loved one. It's rough enough just to do the grieving for your loved one without worrying about the business part of passing away. And some people, I helped this person more than 2 years ago, and I just emailed her yesterday and said, "I'm just checking in because it popped up on my calendar. Check in with this lady November 2024." And so I emailed her, and she emailed me back and she said, "I'm in Spain and I'm still working on international probate. Can you reach out to me in May?" So I have another appointment on my calendar, a little reminder in May 2025. I will call her again and just check in. This has happened. I helped her in 2021, I believe.
Oh,
And
wow.
and so every few months I check in and she'll just say, "I'm still working on this. Things should be wrapped up by May 2025." So there's a note in my calendar to call her back. And I mean, I've long since shred all the information. That's what we do. We don't keep our family's information. So she'll have to remind me of everything with the exception of her loved one's name. But I'll check in with her in 6 months.
So
And before that, it was 6 months. And before that, it was 6 months before that. So
Yeah.
it's clear it's not a one and done service.
for sure.
You're there. I think that's a misnomer here, right? I think a lot like, yeah, I'll talk to them for a little while and what we can help, we can. But it's weeks, months afterwards that you're still helping, years, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Whenever that family needs, they can come back and still get help from you.
Well, and if it's appropriate, right? I read the room and make sure that it would be appropriate to tease a little bit, but sometimes I'll say, "You are stuck with me until everything's taken care of. If you have a question, you come to me and I will do my best to answer your question or get you to somebody who can answer it better than I can."
Wonderful. That is
So
amazing.
one other aspect of this is we help people all over the country, and sometimes those people are from other countries and they move here, and there's a lot of diverse population. And we've even had when we're bringing on a client, "Oh, well, you're not in this part of the country yet, so I don't know if you understand our families." But in my own experience, and Kathy, you can tell me if this is true, families may vary, but they really have the same needs underneath that experience of the variation of areas of where they come from. But the kind of help that you offer as a estate specialist, because you're reading the room, changes greatly from
For
family
sure.
to family.
And one thing that I've really that's helped me connect with families is just asking them the most respectful way I can refer to their family member. If you're from an area where you want to be called Miss Kathy or Miss Mills, I want to do that. I don't ever want to be fingernails on a chalkboard to a family because I'm addressing them in a way that's not as respectful as I could. So I
Yeah.
just ask, how can I respectfully refer to your loved one? And whatever that is, I write it down so that I don't forget, because I want to be respectful to that family. I also like to ask if there's any questions before I begin, because I helped a family once and I went through the checklist and it was fine, and I got to this one part and he was like, "That is my main question. And so as I thought about it, I wasn't sure if he really paid much attention to anything that we covered to that point. So I always ask if there's any questions first so that I can get that big anxiety question out of the way first, and then we can settle in and go through everything else, and they're with me. And sometimes that means repeating things over, and it's okay because they're in a state of overwhelm and grief, and it's okay to repeat things. If I get a grumpy person, I kind of really like grumpy people. I like grumpy people where at the end I have won them over, like killing them with kindness. And so then, all through this call, we're establishing rapport and trust. And by the end of the call, if I've won their trust, that makes me feel really, really good, really good.
Well, from the amount of Google reviews you receive and the amount of feedback you receive about Kathy, you know, I've had owners like say, "Who is this Kathy?" Right? Where did you find her? Because it does make a difference. And I love what you were saying there, because it's not about you. It's about them. It's not about the checklist. It's not about anything. It's about them, making sure they understand what's happening, making sure they feel comfortable with what those next steps are, and that they're, everything to the courtesy of, how do I address your loved one? How'd you say that? How do I best honor them?
How can I respectfully refer to your loved one?
I love how you say that. That's just so meaningful, and no one's going to be offended by that. And you're going to make sure that it's a peaceful conversation the rest of the time, right? We had some wonderful friends who we went on a trip with. We just met with them. We just met them and then decided to go on a trip together, which was kind of maybe a scary thing to do. And the wife kept calling my wife's name Marquesa. Her name's Marquesa, not Marquesa. And it was just a little bit of a variation, but it was nails on the chalkboard. Every time she's like, "Marquesa, come here." And I was like, "Oh, that's not her name." Like I was like, "Oh, were you asking for Marquesa?" And she's like, "Yeah, Marquesa." And I was like, and that she was right there, right? It was no big deal. And I can't imagine having just lost my dad and someone was saying my dad's name wrong. He's Dave, he's not David, right? Like,
Right.
that it was Dad, Dave. And so anyway,
Or they're like, call him Cotton. I'm like, okay.
Okay, Cotton.
They're like, call him Bubba, call him Mama. I'm like, okay. So it's great. Whatever is comforting to the family, that's what we want to do. We want this to be an experience that is comfortable, that's educational, that's informative, and that it reduces that overwhelm. They're like, what do you mean you're going to do that for me? You're going to make that call for me and then just email me and let me know? Some people, they're just flabbergasted. They're like, "Oh, I thought you were going to just tell me stuff. I didn't know you were going to do anything for me." I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
no, I will make that call for you."
Yeah. Looking at what this slide says and with your experience, a lot of times as I'm explaining this to like funeral homes, they will say, "Oh, I could see how this applies to our more wealthy families, but our less wealthy families maybe don't need this." Or vice versa, right? My less wealthy families need this, but my more wealthy families don't, right? And then sometimes it's, well, I don't know if the Hispanic families would need it, or I don't know if this culture or this, or this one. And what's your experience? Is there a big variation between economic status or race or age or gender? Is there anything that like some people are more needy than others, or is it pretty much everyone needs help with these things?
Well, no one family situation is exactly the same,
Yeah.
but everyone would want their loved ones identity protected from identity theft. That's across the board. Um, Maybe not everyone owns a home, or we need to explain the difference between a brick and mortar home and a mobile home, or what triggers probate and what does not, and how many investment companies you call versus calling none. But every family needs to know how to change a car title if that's needed, or how long to leave the bank account open, or what happens with credit card debt, what happens with medical debt, right? Do we notify Medicare or is that automatic? What about prescription plans? So those things are kind of across the board from everyone. And so I don't know that there's a family that couldn't benefit from our servants service regardless of having limited monetary means or their finances are off the chart. I think every family could benefit from that.
I
Are there
agree.
any things culturally that make a difference? Are there different needs based upon culture, background, maybe someone from Thailand versus someone from Mexico versus someone from Kansas?
Well, I can understand the person from Mexico a lot better than I can understand anyone from Asia. But
Because you
and
speak Spanish too,
I
of
speak
course.
Spanish,
Yep.
but and some people will say, I think in my mind, what a cool accent. And one person said to me, I sure like your accent. So, I think people are people, right? And we just want to meet that family where they're at, go through our checklist, listen. One of the most important questions is, okay, do you have any questions about anything we have already covered or any additional questions that weren't here that I can answer? And
Right.
and then you just stop and listen because sometimes they're like, well, no, there's not this, there's no investments, but there's a stock account and we need to change stocks or bonds. And so anyway, when we listen and go through the checklist and let people know that I'm open to more questions. Even if you have a question in 20 minutes, call me back. If you have a question in 2 weeks or 2 months, or in this one family's 3 years, let's keep our conversation going as long as it needs to be so that you are comfortable that we've handled everything we can possibly take care
And
Absolutely.
and that's why the live touch makes difference, right? That's why it's more than a checklist, it's more than a guide, it's more than an app. It's a one-on-one person who's going to understand what your needs are and meet you with your understanding.
of. And
And
if more
sometimes,
information, go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Nikki.
Kathy. No, go ahead.
So if more information is needed, then you just email the family and say, I called these people. They need one piece of information that I didn't have. Email me back and then I will call them again, right? So it's a back and forth uh, conversation that, we sometimes there are just one little detail that's needed. And then when you get that, you can call back, things are taken care of. And so anyway, it's great that we can be an advocate for people. And I try to say to myself, if someone was helping my mother, how would I want them to treat my mom or my dad or my sibling? And that helps me keep everything in perspective and be empathetic to their situation and what they're going through that minute. And I don't get offended if people are abrupt or a bit gruff. That doesn't offend me.
No.
They have just gone through the worst experience of their life. And if that's coming through with abruptness or a bit of anger, then I don't take offense at all.
What I
That's
was going
so
to say is one thing that I love is that because of the human conversation and connection, we will hear things they're never going to go talk to other people about, or who are they going to ask? And this is a real family. If their dad buried money in cans all over the yard instead of putting them in investments.
we need to
Like,
order some metal detectors.
but things like that come up, right? There's
Yeah.
things that they don't know who to ask or what to, you don't want to tell that to just anybody,
Right.
something like that. But we've come across some strange ways people have handled estates also that we never would have known by just answering a set of questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Quick shout out, hello to Liliana, Aaron, Ivy, Ange. Thanks for joining. Got some comments and some thumbs up, and they're loving what you're telling them, Kathy. So really, really good.
Now, some families just want some guidance. So there are families, they really do feel that their efforts of working on an estate is actually their way of grieving. And so there are some people that we get on the phone that don't want all the extra help, but they still need guidance. How do you handle those families?
Well, I just say I am here to help to your comfort level. Okay. So if you want to call the retirement, then I'm going to tell you the questions to ask. What's the final payment you can keep? Was health insurance associated with the retirement benefits? Was there life insurance? Did they contribute to a 401k? Ask all of those questions and then see what they have to say. Most of the time, they'll just say, I'm sending you a packet of information. If you have questions, call back, which is okay. And I respect people that wanna be hands busy doing those notifications and asking those questions, but, if they wanna call Social Security on their own, then I'll say, "You press 1 for English, then you press 2 to continue the call, and then the next time you're given options, you press 0. That will get you to an agent the quickest."
Yeah.
And this is what you want to ask the agent. And if there's dependent children, have your bank account number, have your routing number ready so that the agent can set up an auto deposit for those dependent children right on the call when there's no need to call them back. So we just want to educate them so that they're asking all the right questions and they have the information at their fingertips so that that can be a one and done call for them. And then, there's no need to call back because they have to go search for a little information that we could share. So,
Yeah. I love how you said that. I'm here to help to your comfort level, right? Because some people are comfortable with having you help and some people are not. And so meeting them where they're at means helping them to their comfort level and giving that information. That's impressive. Even helping them like know what buttons to press so they get through the menu quicker. It's just such an extra, like, wow, I'm really thinking about what they're going to have to go through on their own here and making sure they are set up for success.
well, and you're in the right place if they say, "Welcome to the Austin Social Security office," right? So, as much as we can educate, that's great. Some people are not comfortable sharing a Social Security number over the phone.
Sure.
I respect that. That ties my hands in notifications that I'm able to do. So if that is applicable for the family, then I want them to know exactly how to make that notification on their own and what to ask so that they get the information that they need and those benefits can be taken advantage of if they're entitled to them.
Chris just mentioned getting to a human is definitely a superpower these days.
It's
So you
true.
knowing how to get through it, yeah, that's worth it right there. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Um, so with that guidance, what are a couple things you wish every family knew?
So the three piece of advice I would give to people is know how to protect your home so that it avoids probate. Know how to protect your bank account so that it's not frozen. And know how to let people get into your cell phone if there's a need for that. There's people younger than me that all of their business is on their cell phone. And and if you do not have that cell phone passcode, you are at a severe disadvantage of being able to handle that person's affairs. So those are the three things that I would suggest for everyone is protect your home, protect your bank account, set up a legacy contact on your cell phone so that if needed, your family can access what's on your phone.
Yeah. I mean, everything from photos to passwords, it's
To
all on the
accounts,
phone.
yes, young people, they everything is on that phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. And yeah, if you have those three things set up, you're going to be in such an easier position than someone who doesn't.
Oh, update your beneficiaries. That's another one. Make sure all
Oh, yeah.
beneficiaries are up to date. That saves so much headache if all accounts that you own have an updated living beneficiary.
Yeah. And is that something that you're helping people do right then? Because I'm guessing the best time to do it is now, because otherwise
Right.
you'll put it off and forget about it.
For sure. For sure. Once we finish our checklist, we do talk about a few things moving forward that are helpful for the family and organizing documents, whether they're paper documents or online accounts. Make a place for all of your usernames and passwords, lock that up, but give the person who would need that access to that. That's super important.
Yeah.
And update your will and trust as needed. We want everyone to avoid probate. It's costly, it's time consuming, and it's just a lot of hassle for families. And it's one of those processes that are so difficult to navigate yourself. And updating beneficiaries, adding a pay on death to your bank account, speaking with a financial advisor is huge.
Yeah.
And some people are racked with grief, and so there's resources out there that will help those people to connect with professionals, and online courses and support groups that can help with that, because sometimes it definitely takes a toll on those left behind to lose a loved one. And so there's just all the aspects that the people need help with their business stuff, the making of the notifications. They need emotional support and help, and they need guidance for their future to not leave their stuff in a mess, so that it takes a lot of frustration and headache on the part of a next of kin trying to navigate and handle their final affairs.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Kathy, any other last words of advice or wonderful stories you want to share with us? It seems like almost on the daily, I get to hear a wonderful story about some family you've helped. And it's just, I love hearing those. Is there anything else?
Well, there was just this one cute lady. Well, and she just wanted to write down everything, and she would say, "Wait a minute, how do you spell that?" And I had time. I did not need to rush this woman, and I just felt like the way I could be her best advocate was just to let her put the phone down and go grab what I had just asked for. And that's not the case with everyone. Some people are like, "I'm on my lunch break and I need you to talk double time to get through this." And we'll email back and forth. And so, you know, people don't know what they don't know. They don't know 100% if they need help. And so having someone to just walk you through that process is heaven sent, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Kathy, I think you're heaven sent. And the close
I
to
second that.
the close to 6,000 families you've helped feel that way too. If you want Kathy to represent your business, right? If you want Kathy to be part of the experience that they have when they come to your funeral home or hospice or law firm, like give us a call. And she is so wanting to help more families. It's what gives her pleasure and drive, and that's what her heart just wants, is to take care of those families and to show the rest of us pictures for her grandkids. Those are her two passions: helping families and pictures of grandkids. We love it. We absolutely do. But yeah, if you want that, and if you don't want to use our service and you want to pick Kathy's brain on how you can better help families, let us know. We'd love to give you in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Well, Kathy, we're going to have you come back, because this has been wonderful. If you guys have any questions for Kathy directly, estate questions or anything else, post them on the comments and we'll get back to you, or send us an email or text or phone call or whatever, and we will try to answer those questions later on down the road. When's our next SBA Live?
It will be December 4th at noon Mountain Time, and it will be small estate issues that families miss.
Oh,
yeah, it's great. Important.
So we started talking about this a little bit, make sure that the house is taken care of, right? That's titled correctly. Make sure the bank account has a plan. And what was the third one?
Update beneficiaries and a legacy contact.
Legacy contact on that cell phone, right? Oh my gosh, so important. So now we're talking about small issues or issues on a small estate that families miss all the time, right? And this is going to be super useful information. It should be shared with a lot of people, because I think we're gonna have some great information on it. So, Kathy, thank you so much for being here. Nikki, thank you for all that you do for families, and thanks for all that were able to join us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.